All right, so this right here is a treat and a privilege. So thank you, Mark, for making the time for this to happen.
Well, I very much appreciate you taking the time from your busy schedule to find me and invite me along on your journey.
Oh, most definitely. I think that there's actually a lot that not only myself can gain from this conversation, but I think that our listeners can gain as well. Because to
Up.
think about where I stood, a few years back before this project got born. I never would have been sitting here having a conversation like this. I'd have looked at you and kind of laughed and shrugged it off. Now it's like I understand it resonates.
Well, that's just it. And that's what happens in our lives, right? We move through our experiences. Different things happen to us, different people happen to us. And each of those people provides a piece that builds a bridge that then we can create in our mind to a spiritual source that then provides us with that fulfillment. Once that happens, you will find then that you begin to seek those things. You no longer seek the high school party days. We move past that. And now we seek to find more bridges that help us fill those voids that we've had in our mind that we may have never been um, aware of before.
I really think, speaking from personal experience, and I'm sure that, you know, you didn't wake up one day and just decide that this is the path that you're going to live. You had to experience things to get there. And, when you hit those like bad moments, those moments of, well, bad medicine or where, nature says, hey, it's time to stop and look around. For me, it was in a rearview mirror, homeless and lost everybody around me. And I find as I go further down this path, there's still parts of that old reality and that old way of life that I find myself fighting to let go of.
You have to remember, in our lives, we will build habits, if you will, for lack of a better way of describing it, a way of living. And they become our comfort zones. As crazy as they may be, to us looking back at them going, what? But during those times when we were experiencing that part of our lives, they made sense. And they were a sense of comfort to us at that time where we were. And so it it does not surprise or should not surprise us then that as we get down the road and we've got this growth and we and we think we're out of the woods, so to speak, you maybe a longing for just a wild activity or one of those thoughts comes back into our mind. Why? Because those were a sense of comfort in the past. And so our brain somewhere has stored that as a comfort at one point. May not be able to connect all the dots as to why it was comfortable. It simply says that was a moment of comfort in our lives. So it will resurface. And it's not that we want to quote unquote let them go. What we need to do instead of letting them go is learn from them and take the lesson and say, okay, why don't I want to live that way? Why don't I want to do that anymore? What am I, what is the universe, my gods, whoever you want to give credit to, or even yourself, what does this mean? Why am I trying to do this? And when we begin to dissolve those definitions, we can really get down to the brass tacks, as it were, and find out why that is of comfort. And that's where I think you can really begin to really uncover what drove you originally to those behaviors or those moments or those things and solve those, helping again to find peace, to find that tranquility, and trying just harmonizing with both yourself and the world around you. Getting that spiritual energy, just kind of happy thoughts, as it were.
Yeah, that's one of the, I guess, narratives that a lot of us struggle to write, is
It
that
is.
happiness, building a happy experience around whatever it is we're going through in life.
Right.
Because, yeah, like you mentioned, we do go through different stages. We're like one being, and each experience that we and stage of life that we live, it's there to teach us. And as we learn and we grow from that, inevitably those old layers shed, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of store the memories away, grip and grin moments, as I call them.
Mm-hmm.
And they do carry with you in a way that it kind of takes a little bit of work to build a proper narrative, to put that happy twist to it, instead of that kind of like dreadful, like more anger, like,
Right.
poor me, this situation isn't what I'm in now, even though it was comfortable then. It kind of almost feels at times like you look at it and you go, it sucks that that still isn't a part of my life. But I know one of the things that first helped me find context was that quote in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, where it's so unfortunate all this is happening, and then you look at it and you go, no, it's fortunate because only I can learn these lessons, only I can go forward with the dignity and the grace to make a better reality for myself and the world around me.
And that's exactly right. And what you're going to find is that you then can make connections with others who have walked in the same or a very similar path. And unlike, it would be very akin to if you were in a group setting, large group setting, and it was more, and I will use the term machoistic, uh, and everyone's gathered around, and then a very slight built male priest came in and began to explain the meaning of life. No one there would have context. No one there could directly associate with that individual. It's not until another male, and I'm going to keep using this male thing, although it works for both sexes equally, but and we'll call it a battle-hardened Norse warrior comes in and starts explaining it. There's context. If nothing else, we can make the male contact, and then whatever other contact. It now has a relevance because of the individual, and that's what we find with individuals who travel through these horrific paths, is that they're average people. They're normal, everyday, next door neighbor type of people. And when you hear, oh, next door neighbor has this issue that they've worked through, there's a connection there because they're similar. Again, it would be very much like, a congressman coming to my home and trying to tell me how to manage my bills. Chances are I wouldn't listen to him and I wouldn't give him the time of day, because obviously they don't do that. But there's no context. But if my next door neighbor came over and knowing what I know about him, and he was in the same financial straits, suffering the same, uh, uh, you know, taxes or whatever that I was, now there's that relatability, and the story becomes more real. And that, my friend, is what your gift is as we've traveled, and I too have traveled a very uh, long, arduous path to get to where I'm at. But again, for those people who have traveled a similar path, I'm relatable because I've been there, done that, so to speak. And so it makes it more relatable, and then it helps them to start building the bridges that we were just talking about, helps them to start expanding their bridges, and then the pattern continues, right? Because you teach someone, they teach someone, and so on and so forth.
Right. And I feel like, that where they kind of slap that buzz phrase, find your tribe. A lot of people get that mixed up because they miss the looking for and searching for the context. As kind of that quality over quantity approach. You know, you're looking more at what the number of people that are around you as opposed to the quality of the people that are there. And
or what they're giving you. I mean, what, you know, as we interact with others, people give us stuff whether we want it or not, right? So if they're walking around with negative vibes and they're just disliking life and disliking everything, that rubs off on us. And so what value are they providing for us? If there's really no value or very limited value, maybe we need to find a different friend to hang out with on Thursday nights or whatever. So it's just not only the quality of I don't know, the individuals, but the quality of what they're giving us. What and conversely, they have that same option: is what are we giving them? Are we the negative Nancy in the room, or are they? And so and once we can establish a relatability and we remove the negatives, we begin to see some real friendships. And those are where everyone can stand around and make fun of each other or have fun with one another. Why? Because we're providing positive energy to each other.
it's that, back and forth of the positive energy that it's important. It's like, it's key. However, when we look at the society that we live in and we interact with, it gets thrown by the wayside. So, you do have a lot more people that get drawn to you, but that aren't exactly filling your cup per se. And it does wear on you. When you're out there looking for quantity as opposed to the quality, those things do drag you down. They do leave a lasting effect on your soul. And when you start to look at the effects and you start to try to heal yourself, becoming mindful and aware of what you're projecting, the energy level that you're projecting, and trying to match that in what you're looking to receive is such a I don't want to, well, it is a key, but I almost want to say baby step, because it's one of those fundamental things.
And you'll start slow. I mean, we're not going to encounter a pure burst of energy day one, right? It's just not going to happen. You're right. We're going to take smaller steps, and we're going to build that, and then we're going to continue to build that, and those people will build additional energy sources for themselves. One of the things that I wanted to say while you were speaking was, when we talk about self-healing, I think a lot of people struggle with that, because they struggle not because obviously they can do it, but that so much in society over these last couple millennia have taught us that we need an external force to do that. We can't do that. We don't have that power or whatever, which is wrong, which is absolutely wrong. But because we've had 2,000 plus years of ingrained programming, many people say, I can't do that. I got to go to this other source. I have to go to my minister or my pastor, or it's someone else, because I can't do that. And what they're doing is they're shortchanging themselves, because we do indeed possess all the energy that we'll ever need to accomplish anything we put our minds to. We just have to pull away the doubt, the uncertainty, the questioning ourselves, and say, I want this. I need this, whatever this is, right? Peace. I need harmony. I need, just some calm in my storm. I have the power to do that. We all do. And what we just need to remove is the doubt. that we can't, or that we require someone else to do that for us, because we don't.
Now, see, I'd
So
really love to
yourself.
build on that because there was a quote that I heard. I don't know, when I first kind of started toying around with these ideas about comparing the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion being the fact that you're going to somebody for a gift. You're asking for something to be given to you. You're asking for salvation and so on. You're trying to live somebody else's story. Spirituality, on the other hand, is a quest for knowledge and wisdom that you put in the work and you grow. Almost like one of those children books, the choose your own adventure
Right.
type things. And that's what's been so powerful and what's spoken so much to me is it literally puts you in the driver's seat. You're driving the car. Everything else is in the back seat, just along for the ride. You can tap into all those other things for ideas, inspiration, but it comes down to the choices. And when you make the right choices, that's when you start to go forward. It's when you make the wrong choices and you start to veer off path where you're questioning yourself, you're doubting yourself, you're covering it up with masks and vices and everything else, that the water gets really choppy. But I think along those turbulent seas, somewhere one of those waves still knocks up to the forefront, hey man, this is inside of me. This is my unique journey, my unique travels, and every answer to this is in me. I just got to pull it out and do it.
Right. And I got to quit doubting the answers that I'm giving myself for this. But
Right.
one of the comments that you made that I want to make sure that I kind of highlight here is to say that life has no failures. There are no failures. There are learning, and there are not. What society typically refers to as a failure is just an opportunity to learn what we don't want to do, or to set an example for another to learn what not to do. Successes, on the other hand, are the accumulation of all the proper steps in the right direction to accomplish that objective. It's momentarily, it's fleeting, but nonetheless, it is another opportunity for us to learn. So, what society refers to as failures, oh, I'm a failure. No, you're learning something else. If not for your own good, maybe this knowledge can be stored in your mind so as you will help someone in the future. When we begin to take away the negative connotations of failures or bad or evil and all of those silliness, we can begin to realize what life is. It's a learning adventure. And you're 100% right in saying that we are in the driver's seat. We're the, or I like to refer to it as the captain of my ship. I I want to be in charge. I want to go certain places, do certain things. When that doesn't happen for me, I reflect and I say, well, why? Why didn't that happen? What what did I do? What could I have done differently to make it more successful? And so when we start putting everything in our life in that kind of framework, we can begin to remove the negativity, that negative energy that begins to seep up on us when we're not paying attention. And we say, oh, well, I missed this task. I didn't get this one done, so I failed that one. And and that negative energy is then absorbed into your karma. I mean, it becomes part of what you are, and you begin to carry it. Now, some people carry it more readily than others, more obviously than others, but nonetheless, it begins to chew away your positive energy, and it then creates challenges for you to build that positivity. So what we have to do is look at all of our quote unquote failures and go, what did I learn from that? What was the value? And how can I use that in the future? When we take the negative connotations off it, I think we can then restore the positivity and remove that negative energy from us.
See, I love the way that you put that, and I can honestly say that I've lived that because that old quote, "You never step in the same river twice." Well, along my journey since that bad storm, I found myself homeless twice, right? Right at the beginning, and then earlier this year. And the first go around, it was a failure. That was the context. The second time around, it was realizing that it was freeing in a way. And when I look at the difference, the gap in there when I had a place and whatnot, it was too much. It was too big. So, like, I'm sitting right here in a deer blind right now. That was where I spent my time. I had this big old house that I had free reign over, but I stayed in a little 2-man blind because it was small and it was simple. So sometimes, nature throws that curveball at you that says, "Hey, you're trying to chase the wrong thing. You're trying to do the wrong
Right.
thing in the wrong way. So here's this speed bump."
Well, it's really not that you're wrong. And again, there's that adding negative energy to yourself. You're not wrong. You're learning that path is not in your future. There's all too often on so many occasions, on so many levels, we apply just that little bit of negativity. And it could be something so innocent as just saying, "Oh, that's a bad cup of coffee." We say, or, "Wow, I really don't care for this coffee." I've essentially said the same thing without the negativity, right? And so when we apply those things, that's what kind of builds up in us. And one of the things I love about your story, about your homeless stints, if I'll call them that, the difference between those two stints was your mindset.
Yes, it was.
The first time you were negative, you had the connotations of a failure. I didn't do this right, or I didn't do that right. And then the second time, you thought of it as a liberation, as a freedom, as an escape, as a way to get out of what you were in. The mindset was totally different. Why? Because the second time you were positive. The first time you were had a negative outlook on it. So, I mean, it can be that simple of just changing our mindset and saying, "Okay, I don't want to do that again, whatever it was. I want to learn from that and go forward on this other path. Is this other path right for me? I don't know yet. We'll get down the road a little bit and we'll figure it out." Because the universe is going to help kind of keep everything in line. The universe, gods, whatever you want to call it, even the spirits, will keep us on the path towards our destiny, whatever that is. Whatever we are destined to do, they'll get us there. Don't get me wrong, it may be like a 5-year-old going through a candy store where we have to hit every shelf along the way, but we'll get to where they want us to be. The key is that we learn how to drive the boat ourselves. We don't need external forces to drive. We are then making those decisions. We are calling the shots. And by keeping our positive energy in us, not surrendering it, we're able to do that.
It's, actually really surreal to hear somebody describe that situation from an outside point of view where you're like, man, that really resonates. That all makes perfect sense. Because the ironic thing about it is when that second time happened, probably a week before that, I was having a conversation in a counseling session about, my current state of life, and everything just feels too big. It feels wrong. And, I think like that minimalist style of life is something that really sings to me as a more safe kind of thing. And then wallop, there it is. I've got no other choice. So I got to make that happen and make it work. And you know what? It brought a lot of other blessings along with it too. There was a lot more times and moments that right there in that, I wouldn't say storm, but maybe like a gust of wind, that I got to show and celebrate certain things and build on certain things. And man, it was freeing. It was crazy.
Yes, and that's your mind doing that. That's your mind helping you by you not putting those negative thoughts into there, allowing your brain, which is a positive force in of itself. So, because we always have what? We always have hope. Hope is positive energy, regardless where you slice it, regardless how you want to sugarcoat it. Hope is positive energy for us to use whenever we need it. Right? We can be in our darkest hours. As we have hope, we have energy, and we can make the change. So when you talked about, your first adventure, and what we are doing is we limit that. And here's the thing: no one can take away your hope. No one. I've met people who have been chained to a wall for 10 years, but had hope that they would be freed. I mean, if you're going to lose hope, that would be one of the cases that I would I think I would even struggle myself. But we always have hope. And as long as we don't surrender our hope, we allow that energy to flourish, we can conquer all of these small nagging thoughts that say, oh, I'm not good enough, or I didn't do that right, or whatever the case. That matters not. You always have the energy within you.
You still with me?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, I lost you there for a good minute or two, unfortunately.
Oh no, that's fine. I was just saying, in my absence, maybe you can get it on the replay. I don't know if this thing records it or not, but I was just saying, as long as we don't surrender our hope, we maintain our hope, we will always have the energy to cause change, a positive change in our life.
Well, I think that's really where, like all the positive momentum throughout history has come from and inspired that change is somebody had a vision, somebody had hope.
That's right.
And then on top of that, they had the bravery to put a plan into action and nobody was going to tell them no.
Right.
And, look at all the advancements that sparked throughout history. All the changes come that way.
Absolutely. And that's really what it takes. And each one of us has that. No one is born with any more hope than anyone else. No one. I've met people who have been born into well below poverty. And yet they are born with this innate sense of hope. And as long as we can embrace that, hold on to it, keep it, don't surrender it, we can cause change in our life. We can cause positive change in our life. Absolute truth.
It's almost being your own cheerleader, when times are hard. It gets back to that grip and grin moment, when you're on the water and you catch that big old fish, or you're in the woods and you snap that picture with you and whatever it is, the deer or the bear, and you store it on your phone, and then you're having one of those days at work where everything's just dragging and going wrong. You pull up your phone and you're like, oh yeah, man, remember that big old fish and the fun time I had? Yep. That's in me. That memory is ingrained. I can use it. I can channel that energy.
That's right. That's right. And you always retain that because there's hope, right? There's hope that you're going to go out and get another big fish.
Exactly.
That wasn't the only big fish in the pond, We're going to go out next time and we're going to get another one that's just as big, if not bigger. And we continue that. As long as we do, we'll keep generating energy that we can then use for those negative Nancys who come into our lives and say, no, you can't do that. No, that's beyond your ability. No, that's, you're not smart enough. You're not attractive enough. You're not thin enough or thick enough. Who knows, right? They come in and they just throw all these negatives at us and we go, I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to any of those. I can do that if I so choose. I just have to put my mind to it. And I think that's really the difference when we talk about people who fight for success. And they say, because I hear it quite a bit, is, oh, it's been such a battle for success. It's been such a battle. No, it hasn't been a battle for success. It's been a battle to remove your doubt of success. Very different. And so when we talk about these positive energies, we talk about what you're capable of doing. You are your own worst enemy. You will put the roadblocks up there because you will tell yourself, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, whatever negative we want to use. And it's that positive energy of hope. Yes, I do deserve this. Yes, I can accomplish this. Yes, I can have this. Those positive thoughts can combat those negative energies. I'm always of the mind that says, in which is why I'm so honored that my team found your show, because nature is the greatest energy there is. It is Mother Nature, Mother Earth at her rawest, and she powers everything. She is the center of all life. And so when we talk about being out in nature, helping us to clear away that negativity, Mother Earth is going to just funnel in that energy, and she can help us kind of get that back. So a great opportunity to get out and walk amongst our brothers at the trees and the grasses and the mountains and just be with them and feel their energy and absorb that and help to conquer your doubts, your uncertainties, your concerns.
Well, I'll tell you what, coming from somebody that, as you were talking, the point came up in my mind about how a lot of us are taught those vicious cycles growing up. And, you have to learn how to break them and decide which ones are hurting you. And that's where a lot of the roadblocks of self-sabotaging come from. But on the other hand, to progress toward the end of what you just said, is the fact that, nature is literally the biggest blueprint and, sombering element that there is out there, because you go out and you see exactly what it is to live without any of those restraints. There's lessons to be learned from everything that you interact with. There's a reason that nature put it there and designed it the way that it is, and you can tap into that energy and you can gain those things to apply to your own life.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. In every way, shape, or form. I think you're right. We are taught from before birth. We are inundated with negative thoughts about what's a girl, it's a boy. They'll never do this. They'll never play football. They won't like Tonka trucks. Whatever, right? We've always been pounded with these, and you're right. They do build and build and build and build and build, and it's not until we get to a place where we say, why? Why can't my granddaughter, who comes over all the time, I say, there's a Tonka truck. Go play with the Tonka truck. I'm a girl. I don't care. Go play. Go get dirty. Have fun. That's what being a child is about. There's no negativity. There's no stigma. There's nothing attached to it. We can't continue to foster those thoughts. And when we are beginning to grow ourselves and grow and learn and expand our mind, the first key to that is realizing, oh, I've been programmed my whole life this way. That's not me. That's not how I feel. That's not what I want. That's not how I think. And so we begin to replace those thoughts with new thoughts. How do I grow? How can I learn from those things? How do I move on? Oh, I think we got choppy. I hope this isn't in the recording. Well, I think I hear you. There you are. Okay.
There it is. Man, I'm having the worst connection. I figured being up there it would be you, but
No, I've got a good connection right here as long as I don't move.
it seems to be my thing. I adjusted my earphone and
There it went.
right. But yeah, it's all about just taking the time to look. And we're all taught these things. We all have these different traumas that we carry. And yeah, lately over the past few years it's been the trendy thing to want to acknowledge it. But I think it really comes down to what you do with it, taking the opportunity to not only heal and release from it, to learn from it. And, like you were saying about the stigmas put around everything, when you go out on a hike and you come across a deer, do you think that deer's not going to look down and grab a mouthful of grass because he's a deer? It doesn't work that way. It's that simple. And I think a lot of the times, a lot of the things that we carry kind of make us try to outthink ourselves.
We do.
We get so lost in our own head and the stories that we write that there can't be anything outside of the black or white. And that really holds us back. When you start to realize that, man, that color palette is huge. It's a vast color palette. If you're writing an article and you want to change the color of the font, there's hundreds of colors to pick from. The same thing goes with life. It's just, finding that willingness to say, hey, I can do these things. This is my adventure. This is what I want to do, my life.
Right. And we're going to spend time destructing those I can'ts. And we're going to replace them with, do I want to? And when we get those situated, we're going to find that our life is more filled with positive than it is with negative.
Absolutely. And Mark, as we start to hit the back half of our time, I want to kind of dive into your background and talk about what had me so excited and fired up when we first got onto this. So let's go there for a little bit.
Okay. Well, as you know, if you don't, there's a book coming out, so you'll be able to read it there. But my history really comes from the Christian church, where I was a minister. But I had holes in my beliefs. I couldn't reconcile the beliefs of the church against my own personal doctrine. After some ancestry work I completed for my mother, I found where I belong. I found my path. My path didn't arrive in my life until my 40s. I was lost for a very long time before I became found. But one of the things that made me so excited about the show was that one of the things that I credit to being the catalyst for my spiritual explosion, if you will, was nature, was coming to understand the balance of life, the entire circle. And of course, moving to Alaska seriously helped me get in touch with nature, where I could witness the deer that you mentioned, where they were living life and really not concerned too much with me there. I was there, and I was kind of big, and but they didn't care. their circle continued with or without me. And nature, as it weaved its the canyons with streams and rivers, I was insignificant. That circle will continue. And it really got me thinking as to all of the negativities, all the I can'ts, when you start comparing yourself and you say, "Oh, I can't, reach this next goal in mine," and then you stop and you think that the Grand Canyon was formed by a stream. And that stream eventually carved away solid granite and moved it downriver and became, obviously the Colorado River. But it started as a stream. Now, many would say when those first drops rolled down the hill, they probably didn't think of themselves as doing a whole lot of anything. But yet, over time, and with cooperation of the other raindrops and the other water sources, they carved away this huge canyon that we can enjoy today. So when you start thinking about how insignificant, this challenge is before us, when we start looking at nature and we start looking at it with a critical eye, and I think that really opened me to where I went, to where my spiritual journey went, and where I am now. I was able to see how the circle always goes. And why? Because the energy of the earth powers that circle, much like it does for us. It kind of keeps us in check to get where we're going. It lets us wander a lot, like the river. When the wolves were drawn out of Wyoming, I'm always reminded, oh, we'll just pull the wolves out and nothing will happen. Well, something did happen. A river actually changed direction because the deer were overeating all the grasses, and it changed the direction of the river. So yes, but we learned, right? And we said, oh, you know what? We need to have those wolves back. And when the wolves came back, they ate the deer, and the river returned to its. Now, granted, I'm talking decades here. I'm not talking a weekend. But the fact of the matter is, we get so caught up in applying our labels to make it to next whatever. And as you've discussed and said yourself, sometimes simplicity is the answer to everything. Getting away from all of the craziness and getting back to just simple life. Sometimes that is our greatest answer. And of course, Mother Nature is an excellent demonstrator of that simplicity.
I think that is actually probably the most simplest and beautifulest way to put the whole conversation, really. It boils down to that simplicity,
It really does.
Even when, two people sit down and have a conversation about it, we can make it so complicated, but it boils down to just the simplicity of doing. Right. Everything in the wilderness just does. It doesn't write a story around it.
Nope.
And you know what, to even touch back on the deer thing, the deer goes through the day. Of course, they're paranoid and worried about everything that's going to jump out and get them, but they're going to go about their normal course of action. And if they take the wrong step and become dinner, hey, that's just the way it was meant to be. That was... Right. I was dinner that night. That's what nature wrote.
Right.
And I feel like part of the human experience, if we really tapped into that mindset, it would be so much more than just the autopilot, nose to the grindstone. Who really cares how these things are affecting us? We would actually explore and grow in that vocabulary that we use to write our story in life would
Yes,
be so much more vast.
agreed. Completely agreed. Yep. I mean, I'm always reminded of the people who shout out about, oh, the wolves, how they kill the deer. And it's like there is no remorse on the wolf's part.
Right?
He, he was hungry. He had to feed his people. What he did. And that's the story that the universe intended. And so I think all too often we try to, and again, many people try to plug emotion into a scenario where there shouldn't be. It doesn't need to be. And the problem with that is when you start attaching emotions, this is where you get the good and the bad. And all of a sudden now you attach this other negativity to something that doesn't need to be negative. If we took it as a learning process of life, it just is what it is. But I think, from the human experience, learning in every scenario for us is what's paramount. If we stop looking at things in a negative, bad, evil function and say, what am I learning from this? Take away that negativity, that allows us to be more positive and accomplish more.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, after all, wisdom is accumulation of not only looking at the past to learn someone else's lessons, but living your experience to gain your own and put your own unique twist on them to apply to each step down the path. So
That's right. And that's a very key, because now you're creating a relativity that didn't exist before, because maybe
right.
that person wasn't relative to someone else, and you're able to provide an additional relativity that allows others to learn and grow and expand. So yeah, I mean, everything has a reason, everything has a purpose.
And I think that's a beautiful point to end this conversation on. But as we wrap things up, you've got to let people know where they can get in touch with you and what you got coming up.
Well, thank you. And the best way to get a hold of me at any time of the day or night is through our website, and that's Úlfhé. Let me spell that, because a lot of people try to put the wrong letters in there. It's ULF as in Frank, HEDNAR.com. So Úlfhé.com. All of the information about how to get a hold of me, my teachings, my lessons, of course, the show is there. In addition, here for the holidays of this year, I have a book coming out. The book is called The Turn to Final. The Turn to Final is essentially a textbook for all intents and purposes. It's a textbook about the reality of spirituality in our lives every day. So I take physiology from the human body and I explain using some quantum physics. I know I didn't think so either, but it's there. And connected spirituality to our physiology. And so the book talks about the evolution of psychology and how people became programmed over a period of time, and particularly over the last 2,000 years, and how we adopted a lot of practices and a lot of promise. Again, the book is coming out the holidays of this year, so I would expect probably within the next 2 months or so. It should be on shelves. So you can get it. You'll be able to get it through Amazon, all the places. For those individuals who are already intrigued, there on the website is a link that they can go and click and get on like the early list thing. You can also see a summary of the book there, so kind of get some ideas of what we're talking about in the book. So if anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to look at that too. Check out the show. Drops every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. Anywhere you get your podcasts. I try to. I've been pretty consistent now. Lots of travel, so summer is always a busy time here in Alaska. But we've been trying to do a show a week and getting out the message. Just slow pieces that hopefully will provide you, kind of energize that hope and get you some positive energies to move forward.
I think that's some beautiful work. That's what we do here. So I can relate to that. And, Mark, it's been awesome. It's been a beautiful conversation. I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet you and also celebrate this journey that we're on.
Absolutely. I am so pleased that we were able to connect, because I love seeing people get it. When that light comes on and they begin to understand that there's so much more of life, that in many cases that we're limiting ourselves. So I love to see it. So wonderful. I very much appreciate being here.
I'm grateful that you had the time. I feel like we barely scratched the surface today, though. We'll have to get together and do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me know. I'll be happy to come back. Love to talk more about the growth and the path, because all
Right.
too often everybody is doubted out of success, and that's a shame. So love to see more positivity and more moving forward.
Definitely.